Hi, I'm Danny Johnson. Welcome to the Danny Johnson Show. You know, when Hans and I started having kids, which, to be totally honest with you, our entire relationship started with kids. That's just kind of how we did it. We didn't do everything right. However, it was a very interesting thing. It didn't take too long before I felt this urge to want to go back to church. You see, I walked away from God when I was 18 years old. In fact, I was, I had just given birth to my first child. I don't know if you know the story of that. We don't have time to go into that right now. And I promise you, this show is about success, and it's about the fullness of success, which includes your family. Yes, so many people chasing just one part of success and leaving out the biggest part, the heritage, the legacy part, which is the most important part, which is the part that we'll be standing face to face with our maker. He ain't gonna go, good job, you made a lot of money. Good job, you bought lots of houses. No. It's gonna be about what did you do with your spouse and your kids? How were you as a wife, a husband? How were you as a mother, father? What did you impart into your children? Hey, I know you just felt that, the pucker up happened inside your gut as it just in mine as I said it. It's not going to be like how many assets you have. You know that, right? So success has to be a full picture. It really does. So when Hans and I ended up getting married, sadly, 2.5 years after, yes, we had conceived a child. I don't know what happened, but something happened in me around end of 1994, where I was like, I'm feeling like I need to get back to church. I need to go to, and mind you that when Hans and I got married, we never even had a spiritual conversation. At all. I was a metaphysician. When I was 18, I walked away from God and said, God, if I have to be like your people, I want nothing to do with you. Your people, fill in the blanks of my wonderful, colorful language. After I experienced so much condemnation, judgment, manipulation, a high level of manipulation, it was like, no, I don't want anything to do with being a Christian. I don't want anything to do with Christians. You can't trust those people. They're mean. They're horrible. No way. But man, here it is. I'm married now. I have 3 children at this point, and I'm feeling the urge. And I go to Hans and I say, I don't know how you're going to feel about this, but I kind of feel like I need to start going to church. And he looked at me and he said, okay, then we'll go. I was like, what? Could you imagine? I want you to think about this. Here is your girlfriend that now is your wife, kind of. And she is a metaphysician. Like, she wears crystals. She burns, sage. She's been in seances. She's spent thousands of dollars with tarot card readers and psychics. Do you understand? All of a sudden she comes and says, I kind of feel like I need to go to church. And what was it? It was really about the kids and my life and our lives and trying to figure out, gosh, man, I don't know why, but I came to the revelation that all of this metaphysical stuff was just super empty. It was dry. It was kind of a big facade. And I ended up with a crazy amount of fear at the end of all that metaphysical road. And it was time for me to get over my fears. The fear of being hurt by Christians. So today we're talking about, yes, that family front, and we're talking about, is it really a good idea for kids to go to church? Our kids are all grown, and they're all adults, and they've got their own lives, their own careers. A couple of them have babies and making more babies. But when we look back, we scratch our heads and say, was it really wise that we raised them in church? I'm asking you the question. Is it really a good idea for kids to go to church? I want to read your comments below. I want you to tell me, do you think it's a good idea? What has been your experience with bringing kids to church? I think we need to go in with our eyes wide open. I don't think we need to be these ridiculous, naive, and even almost borderline idiotic parents who think that only wonderful, great things happen at church every Sunday and Wednesday. And then, of course, the youth group that meets on Wednesday nights, only wonderful things happen there. And then, wait a second, I'm going to put my kids in a Christian school because they're also going to have the best possible opportunity there, too. I'm sorry to tell you, I was a teen pregnancy in a Christian school. There are thousands of teen pregnancies in Christian schools. Yes, but Danny, those are the kids who were sent to that Christian school that weren't raised by Christian parents. Okay, listen. Yeah, my parents were drug addicts, but his parents were like high up in their church. You know, they served in their church. In fact, she was even the church the Christian school secretary. It takes two to tango. Oh, well, you must have been that little harlot. That's what they thought, but that was not the case. Their son was the one that was pursuing. Their son was the one pressuring me to have sex when I didn't want to. I eventually buckled, yes, and conceived a child. Yeah. She's now 31, almost 32. Anyway, don't be naive. Don't be naive. Raising your kids in church does not mean they're going to be shielded from the ways of the world. They're not. But here's one little twist I'm going to give you. This is one little important twist. Well, first of all, let me read this to you. A question on a Christian advice forum says this: I wasn't very religious myself when we got married. Once we had kids, though, it became important for me to raise them Catholic. So we decided that I would handle everything that had to do with religion. It worked for us in those early years, but now the kids are 9 and 13 and don't want to go to Mass anymore and think that it's not fair that I make them go when my husband stays home. What can I do? You're in a pickle, aren't you? By the way, 13, biblically, that child is an adult. And it's up to them to find their own relationship with the Creator. They are now fully responsible for everything that they do, everything that they say, and every choice it is that they make. You see, too many times, parents think that just bringing their kids to church and sending them to a Christian school is somehow going to have them really walk with their Creator. But it's not true. You have to think about how many kids have even gone to a Christian college who are now atheists. Come on, think about it. Some kids have grown up in really ultra-religious homes, whether it's an ultra-religious Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, Catholic, Jewish Orthodox, right, Christian or Pentecostal. I'm sorry to tell you, but atheists get birthed in those churches and in those church schools and in those colleges. So wait, what's the answer, right? You got to think about it. What's the answer to that? Check this out. In response to another blog post about the importance of kids attending church weekly, Devin Cook writes this. He says, going to church once, twice, or more a week and doing nothing at home doesn't do anything. Some of the meanest kids were in church every Sunday that I grew up with and are still mean to this day. So just because somebody goes to a building and just because someone is a part of a club does not mean that they have received the Messiah, does not mean that they're walking in his ways, does not mean that they know the Father and that they're connected with the Father, does not mean squat. Okay, listen, here's what you need to understand as a parent. You are actually the one who is beautifully charged, mandated, and even appointed, and if you're a Pentecostal, anointed, to be the one that has all spiritual authority over your children. Deuteronomy 6 says it all. He says you are to love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, all of your mind, and all of your resources, all of your strength. Love him with everything you have. And in the next words say, and teach your children to do the same. It does not say, and send your kids to church, and send your kids to Bible study and youth group and Christian schools and Christian colleges. No, it says, and teach your children to do the same. And it says this, upon arising and being in your house, every time you eat, when you're walking down the street, before you go to bed, teach your children to love me. This is Yahweh, the Father, the God of Israel, the creator of the heavens and the earth, who is telling the parents how to raise their kids. I think that we're in bigger trouble today as a world and especially as a body of so-called believers, because that's the one thing we're not doing, which is exactly what this man, this father, David Cook, is saying. Like, sending them to church 3 times a week, don't do squat because you got mean people there too. Oh gosh, you got judgmental people. You got mean people. You got people who are making some really foolish choices. You even got pastors who are sleeping with people in their congregation that are not their wives, of which some of them are children. No joke. Come on. You remember years ago that pastor out in Atlanta who had 25,000 members in his church? He massively spoke against homosexuality, and 7 boys came forward that he had forced into a sexual relationship that he molested. So here is this man with all this judgment in the pulpit. He's cheating on his wife with men, and he's speaking boldly against homosexuality. And yet, he was one of them. Not just that, but he was also a pedophile. Like, crazy, right? So listen, don't be stupid. You need to be wise. Now listen, I've got other people who have amazing comments about it. Kathy says, forget my kids. I'm struggling to get myself there. Sour taste in my mouth from a church that really could care less. And sadly, there's so many huge churches out there that, again, there's no relationship. There's no community. You see, the Bible itself talks about building community and a gathering of a people, a gathering of families. And it's about, again, it's about community. It's not about attending a message, listening to an appointed messenger. You're the main messenger in your kids' lives. Your actions is the main message to your kids' lives. And at every opportunity that you have, be teaching them. We've got Tracy that says, we went as a family when our kids were growing up. They weren't given a choice. It was just the same as school. They were excited to go. So again, it's all, now, don't you notice that some parents let their kids be sour about attending school, and some parents let their kids be sour about attending church? Our kids liked attending church. We did come to a point, yeah, where we just stopped going, and we started having stuff at home, and we started having conversations with them and taking charge of our mandate of teaching them ourselves. And there were seasons when we went and there were seasons when we didn't, but all the while the thread coming through that we were the ones responsible on a daily basis, being able to train them up and understanding who their father is. And every single one of them knows who their father is and continuously walks with him in their own way and in their own walk of life with him. We have Rachel Potts who says, my son knows no different. I've raised him in church all his life. He loves going to churches, children's church, where they have worship service and kids church. We also go on Wednesday night where there is a Royal Ranger group for kids. Okay. And so in her case, it's like, it's been awesome. We've got Donna Lane who says, I was in a mega church and a church planting Sunday ministry. Then, all caps, Yeshua called me out, which by the way is Jesus's real Hebrew name. He's not a Greek. Jesus is a Greek name. Yeshua, he's Hebrew. That's his name. She says, Yeshua called me out, calling me his olive tree. Now we've been keeping Shabbat, the feasts, the festivals, kosher for years. My 21-year-old daughter, Juliana Grace, struggled. She basically went from Disneyland type church to quiet house churching, but my 17-year-old Olive Joy basically knew nothing but the messianic walk. I feel we must lead our children, let them have a say, but the mantle of spiritual headship is on the dad. Though I'm married, that kind of leading and training and parenting was and still is on me. I got to tell you something. It's on both of you. It's on both of you. He is the spiritual head, no question, but you also have a spiritual play as a woman inside of their hearts, inside of their mind. The two of you are one flesh. You just express yourselves differently spiritually. Even if your husband is an atheist, he is still the spiritual headship. And by the way, God will use him to teach the children the morals that will help to bless them, the values that will help to bless them. And so don't discount your husband if he doesn't express himself the way that you do. By the way, I've been there. I've done that. I did that to my husband. I thought because he wasn't as overtly, in prayer, he wasn't, in my mind, he wasn't reading the Bible as much as I was. He didn't spend as much time in prayers. And how was I supposed to know? I didn't know how much time. I just assumed I know with my self-righteousness. My self-righteousness was wonderful. Anyway, Donna goes on to say, it's simply not my place, but if they simply won't, you can't just not train your kids. I'm thankful for Abba's grace, which is Hebrew for father, and all things to help carry the load. I pray that my beautiful daughters marry men of Yah who choose this walk to be equally yoked, truly love him, and the children enough to lead their families well. Yes. So anyway, lots of mixed ideas here. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? It's very interesting. So here's what I will say to you. Just because you have your kids in church does not mean they're going to turn out great. Nope. They're going to learn all kinds of crazy stuff in that place. The thing that they're going to learn, which is the scariest thing for them to learn, is hypocrisy. Yes. Hypocrisy. That's what they get the chance to learn at church, youth group, Bible study, Christian churches, Christian schools, and Christian universities. They get to learn hypocrisy. They don't learn that in the public sector. It's expected. Well, actually, hypocrisy is saying I live a certain way, and yet behind closed doors, I don't at all. And so there really isn't hypocrisy from a religious standpoint necessarily in those public sectors, unless, of course, there is somebody that's a religious person who's like preaching, and then behind the scenes doing everything they say they're not doing. So bottom line is that you need to shield your children from that kind of hypocrisy in the church. Why? Listen, I'm not talking against the church. What are we? We're a bunch of broken people trying to figure out life. We are forgiven as long as we ask for forgiveness of our Father in heaven through the Son, Yeshua. So bottom line is we are a mess. And as soon as we start just confessing that we are a mess and we don't know all things and we are not perfect and we continuously make mistakes and we are ironing out our salvation in fear and trembling before our Father in heaven, then we can be real with our kids. And also that when their friends, that if you have them in church, are being jerks, and when people in church judge them or do something to them just flat out wrong, this is where, again, you remind them, listen, we are all a mess. We have all fallen short of the glory of God. I know it hurts. And you've got the choice right now to forgive. To forgive and extend grace. Because if we forgive, we receive that kind of forgiveness. If we don't forgive, then we're going to be in trouble, and it's going to be big trouble. So if you are the churchgoer, I bless you in that. We've gone to church for years and years and years. Some of them have been horrifying. Others of them have been amazing. Okay. Some of them have been meh. Okay. Bottom line is that it is your mandate. You're the parent. Okay. Your pastor is not the one mandated to lead your children. The youth pastor is not the one mandated to lead your children. It is your calling. It is the highest calling that you have personally to teach them the ways of our loving, living God. It is your mandate. It doesn't matter how skilled you think you are. Don't you compare yourself to the pastor, or don't compare yourself to the children's minister. Gosh, no. Do not compare yourself especially to anybody on television. No! They don't need that. They don't need that. They need you to do what the Jews have done for thousands of years. Tell the stories. Just tell the stories. You don't even have to tell it from the book. If you already know the stories, tell the stories, act the stories out, make it real to them. It's what I do to my grandchildren's now. So you can do this, my friend. You got this, my friend. So whether you don't have them in church or you do, wide open eyes, it's your job. Do not use those places as a crutch. Don't give your responsibility over to somebody else, because you are the spiritual covering over those beautiful children. All right, that's it for us. Hey, listen, I want to hear what you think. I want to know your opinion about this. I know I could have ruffled your feathers a little bit, or you were like, yep, I'm there. You right, Danny. Okay, whichever one it is, I want to hear from you. We want to hear what your thoughts are. And if you've had great church experiences, as we have, write that in the comments below. If you've had terrible church experiences, write that in the comments below. This is a safe place. We value your opinion. If there's anyone that's going to attack on either side, that person's just being foolish and not understanding that everyone here in this community is entitled to their own opinion, and it is respected and it is honored. If you haven't come over to join us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube, please subscribe to any one of those pages so that we can continue to communicate with you and stay in touch, and you can build community with us, because we're a community of people that want success in every area of our life, and we're making it happen. By the way, if you want more advice that's sound, that lines up with your values, that lines up with great wisdom, and you want to set your kids up to succeed in every area of their life, especially emotionally, spiritually, physically, work-wise, and financially, there's a book called Grooming the Next Generation for Success. Get your copy today. Again, that's Grooming the Next Generation for Success. It is going to prepare you as a parent, as an aunt, as a grandparent on how to set your kids up for a win in life. And it's all biblical. It's all according to what God says we're supposed to do with our kids, and you being mandated to be the person to do it. If you're a social worker or even a school teacher, a youth leader, a pastor, do what other pastors have done. They have taught that book straight from their pulpits. Universities are teaching this book. There's professors from all over the world that are teaching this book. Grooming the Next Generation for Success. Get your hands on it today. DannyJohnson.com is where you can get your copy. Again, that's DannyJohnson.com. Grooming the Next Generation for Success, because someone is grooming your children for failure, even at church. All right, God bless you. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
If this episode was an encouragement to you, go to DannyJohnson.com and share it with your friends now. You never know who else needs to hear it. This has been The Danny Johnson Show. Join us every weekday at 7 a.m. for more insights that will help you get to the